The country's going to find out. Everything runs through Lubbock.
The Lady Raiders come into Waco and knock off Baylor.
Davis to the plate. Save! Texas Tech has done it.
The Red Raiders come out with one of the most remarkable victories for any program this season.
We can play with any team in the country. We really are who we say we are, and I'm looking forward to everyone seeing that.
Welcome all to the Tortillas and Takes podcast. You are on once again with your boy, I'll be sure. And soon enough, here soon, we might be updating that intro if something incredible happens in these NCAA men and women's tournaments. So to talk about the incredible tournaments that are coming up as well as the end of the season, we got the People's Champ himself, Jeremy Gillen. What's up, Jeremy?
What's up, Albie? Here we are. I don't know what else to say. We kind of talked about in the last episode that we're limping into this situation. You know, usually in previous years, it's like, hell yeah, NCAA tournament, I'm stoked. And this year, I'm kind of like, the NCAA tournament. We shall see what happens.
we shall
on
see.
Friday.
I'm stoked to. That's fun. Let's
play here. All right.
Let's have fun, guys. Good. So also on the pod to unite us all, it is the Red Raider expert himself, Joe Lopez. What's up, Pez?
Not a whole lot. Yeah, the expectations. It's fun. Where men's and women's teams are both dancing. Hasn't happened in quite some time, so you got to applaud that for both of these basketball teams. But the feeling going into both of these games on Friday, pretty unsettling feeling on both sides of it. So hopefully they could get to the round of 32 and then just see what else happens from there.
And then just have fun, guys.
Yeah.
It's funny. So the last time both teams were in the tournament at the same time, we had a guy in Bob Knight, who I think is arguably a top 5 coach of all time. And we had a women's coach in Marsha Sharp, who's arguably a top 10, 15 coach of all time. All right. We had like 2 legendary coaches coaching at Texas Tech at the same time. Right now, I'm not jumping the gun on Krista Gerlich and Grant McCaslin just yet, but it does show you just how long it's been for both programs, right? The last time the women were in the tournament, I was in school, because I'm youthful and full of life. So who knows? Maybe that was last year. It wasn't. It was 15 years ago. But that's besides the point. That's how long it's been for the women. For the men, it hasn't been that long. But Jeremy, to you and Joe's point, it's been a weird season because it's not necessarily been a bad season. Usually, when I say it's a weird season or I say it's a tumultuous season, I say it's a down season, I usually mean it in a negative quotation. Last time I made the comment that it's been a really weird, tumultuous season, it was because it was McCaslin's first year here, where we had a team that honestly on paper wasn't very talented, but McCaslin's ability to coach made us a lot better than we were. The time before that, I said it was a tumultuous season. It was Adams' last year here, and God, that was the most god-awful season of all time. This is just a weird season because we've suffered some bad losses. We've had some of the best wins I think I've seen a team have in a single season, but yeah, we're going into the season without arguably the best player in the country in JT Toppin. So, I mean, what are the vibes that you're feeling at the end of this season? And how do you feel about this team in general as they've closed their chapter in this year, in the regular season anyway?
Yeah, I mean, coming into the season, we were talking about this in the last one, that there's just a very distinct pattern for Texas Tech basketball now where you introduce a bunch of transfers. The first, right through December, it's very wishy-washy. You have games that you lose that you think, man, we really could have won that. You've got a blowout somewhere in there, Purdue. And then you start to get that chemistry built in and you see a big win. So Duke this year, right? Duke now seeing his team is like, Duke is probably going to win the national championship. That's what a lot of people are saying. And it's like, we beat that team in December. We beat that team, right? Now, it's a lot of time between December and March. So through conference, it felt like we had a really good stride going. You got some really big wins that had, bracketologists saying Texas Tech's 3 seed for sure could bounce to the 2. Like, depending on how they finish the season, could bounce to a 2. We could see it happening, right? Last one in. And that felt really good because it felt really validating for all of the pieces that we have on the team this year, being able to rebound, top it in there, being able to shoot the three well across a number of different players, being able to facilitate and control the ball. Like, our game started to really feel like we are putting together a team that could contend for a national championship. And I think a lot of people recognize that, especially if you beat Iowa State, right? And then JT Toppin goes down in a really goofy game against a really goofy team. And that really put a wrench in everything. Even with the 3 games after that, when you had a really 3 big wins, teams keyed in and they're like, oh, okay, Texas Tech just trying to shoot the 3. Like, they're gonna live and die by the 3. So if that variance is offered them, then we just got to play our game and out rebound. And so that's what other teams did the rest of the season, and it's been very disconcerting. It's just like, if we can't rebound, do we even have a chance? And so that's what my big fear going into this. We're so heavily reliant on the 3 ball. Like, yeah, we may go out and smoke Akron by 20 points because we just can't stop missing 3s. Or alternatively, we could lose by 20 because we can't hit anything and we're afraid to push the paint. So this team went from being pretty solid in my mind of like, oh, we can beat anybody, to, man, I really hope that we can just have a good night and it can all go well for us, right?
I mean, yeah, so if we look at the team, this is a team that was the first team to beat 3rd-ranked Duke at the time. We were the 2nd team to beat 6th-ranked Houston at the time. We were the 2nd team to beat number 1 ranked Arizona at the time. We also beat top 5 Iowa State. And there's no team that got to be pissed watching the last week of Red Raider basketball than Iowa State, because they got to be looking at this and saying, oh, now y'all can miss. Oh, now in crunch time, y'all can miss some 3s, because y'all weren't doing it in Ames. All right. As we played TCU, BYU, and then Iowa State again at the end of the season, it's like all of a sudden we went from, to your point, Jeremy, hitting everything. Like, against K-State, we couldn't miss. Against Iowa State, we couldn't miss. Against TCU, we missed a lot. Couldn't rebound to save our lives, especially in crunch time. Against BYU, same thing. And against Iowa State, Iowa State the second time kind of doesn't count because, as we all know, since Beard has taught us since 2016, don't worry about the Big 12 tournament. It's been a constant, whether it's Chris Beard, Mark Adams, Grant McCasland. They're like, F the Big 12 tournament. We don't care. We're making a quick trip to Kansas. Guys, hey, pack one. All 3 coaches have been like, hey, guys, pack 1 outfit. That's it. We're here for a short time. All right. Get some cardio in. All right. You know what's funny? Real quick, Joe. You know what's funny about that game against Iowa State? Grant McCasland is always extremely animated during the game. That is the most calm I've ever seen him. He was just like, oh, well, 20-point loss. No big deal. Let's go home. All right, let's get ready. But Joe, what is your takes from how the Texas Tech Red Raiders finished the season and their season overall?
I mean, it's a season of 3 phases. I mean, if you look at it, the first part of the phase, like me and Jeremy were talking about last podcast, was like, everybody's getting acclimated to their new role and they're getting acclimated to offense, finding the right group of guys to be, going out onto the court. Because, on paper, before the season started, this was a depth heavy class. We had the depth there to finally, secure somebody getting hurt, that we had another piece there, and we added height, things like that in the offseason. So the first phase was, getting acclimated, getting Christian Anderson acclimated to being point guard 1 whenever he was primarily shooting guard last season, so you have that phase. And then you get that phase where everything's starting to go together, things like that. It's working out. You get the Duke win. You play Houston tough. You come back and you beat Houston. And then you get some other tough wins there. And then you start getting some of these players healthy, some players that you didn't have healthy earlier in the season. Now you're reacclimating new guys back into this offense and what you're trying to do moving forward. Then you have the JT Toppin injury. Then now you're having to go back to the drawing board as far as everything goes with how you want to run this team, after Toppin's done for the year. And I think it's still a work in progress. I think the the recipe is there, as you could see. But I mean, to Jeremy's point, if you're not knocking down threes and or rebounding, it's going to be tough for you to win any games in the NCAA tournament. That's either game one or all the way up into the Final Four, Elite Eight, Sweet 16. However far this team could go. But as far as how the team's been in the Big 12 tournament itself, yeah, I don't think there was much care in the world from anybody with the men's basketball team about actually going deep into that and, securing the Big 12 championship tournament. But man, I think this team's still figuring some stuff out, and we'll see exactly what Coach McCaslin and company have in store for the Akron Zips on Friday morning, and we'll see what happens from there. But I still think it's just been 3 different phases of this Texas Tech basketball season due to injuries, due to people coming back, and then due to new positions for some of your top players.
No, absolutely. And so talking about injury, JT Toppin, obviously got hurt in that Arizona State game, like Jeremy was mentioning. That injury likely cost him Big 12 Player of the Year for the second time in a row. I think we were talking before about the possibility of Christian Anderson still winning it. And I think, if I remember correctly, it seems like he still got some votes for Big 12 Player of the Year. But obviously he didn't win it. I think JT Toppin would have probably won it unanimously, to be honest. But one thing with JT Toppin is even with the injury, JT Toppin still getting first-team All-American. Last year, when he should have gotten first-team All-American, he was a consensus second-team All-American. This time, first-team All-American. Christian Anderson getting third-team All-American. Both incredible. I mean, this is let's face it, guys. This is a program that doesn't get that many All-Americans. As great as Keenan Evan was, he didn't necessarily get there. We did get it from. We've gotten a few All-Americans from Tony Battie, from Lord Jesus, the name was Andre Emmett. There we go. Got it from Andre Emmett. Obviously, we got it from Jarrett Culver. But we don't have a lot of All-Americans in our history. Toppin's now gotten it in back-to-back years. I tweeted it earlier, but he comes back for another year, and we don't know when he'll be healthy from this injury. But he comes back for another year. Let's say it's for most of the year. He has an opportunity to get a third All-American piece. If he's there for the whole year, he's going to be in the running for National Player of the Year. Right? This isn't as strong of a freshman class coming in next year as it was this year. So he's going to be in the running for National Player of the Year, which is incredible. It's insane. And a third All-American, whether that's in the 27 season, or I've even seen some people saying that, well, what if he redshirts next year and comes back 28 as a 50-year-old? But either way, a third All-American, that puts you as one of the greats. That puts you in the Tyler Hansborough, JJ Redick tier of some of the greatest players of all time to get 3 All-Americans in 3 separate seasons. So, and also, guys, with 2 All-Americans, I think 2 All-American odds in 2 years. JT Toppin is already in the conversation for greatest Texas Tech player of all time. All right. I don't know I don't think people necessarily want to say that just yet. Right. Because like I said, we have Jarrett Culver, we have Andre Emmett, we have Tony Battie, we have some guys that you would say, but what about those guys? It went from the thought of, is this the greatest single season in Red Raider history, to now, let's face it, JT Toppin as a player is arguably the greatest player to put on the Red Raider jersey. And a part of me just wants to go out and just say, I think he's arguably it. I think there's conversations, still discussions with Battie and with Emmett especially, and Culver. But a part of me just wants to go ahead and say, and I don't think even Culver was never the National Player of the Year, right? I look at JT Toppin and I say, he might be it. He might be the guy. He might be Mr. Red Raider.
I think the argument's there to be had. I don't know what else you would need to do, and I wouldn't even put. I mean, no disrespect to Jarrett Culver, I wouldn't even put him in that tier, to be completely honest.
He's like too short.
No, I just don't think he was that kind of caliber player like a JT Toppin like that. I mean, I admit he was a great player and he got things done, but I don't think Culver does a quarter of the things that Toppin does on the offense and or the defensive side of the ball. But I mean, it's also two different games as well because you work Toppin inside out. He's deadly with that left hand, right hand down there on the short post. I mean, he's a scoring machine. He's a double machine. There's not really a whole lot of downs in his game other than maybe free throw shooting and then his 3-point percentage, which, if he's wanting to excel in the NBA level, he's going to have to pick both of those up or else he's just going to be a really good, Euro player. I'm just saying, man.
The JT Toppin dealership, Ford dealership is going to do really well. Okay. It's going to do Toyota. The JT Toppin Toyota dealership is going to do very well.
He drives a Ford Mustang, so
he does. Okay, well, there you go.
A Mach-E, I think. That's what
How does he fit in a Ford Mustang? That's a good question.
That's a good question. Jeremy, tell him why he's wrong.
I'm not.
To which part? To Culver not being a part of it all?
To whether Culver is part of it or whether Toppin is one of the greatest.
I think that when I think about kind of in the lore of it all, like Jarrett Culver exists as such an excellent player, I think very much because of the team that was around him at the time. Like he had a lot of really good facilitators on the teams that he was a part of. And like, there was just so much less stress. I do agree with Joe, especially that I think defensively, just Toppin offers a lot more with both his length and his athletic ability. And noticeably, like when he's not on the court, but our defense is really not that, like we don't have a lot of good post presence or anything like that. But I mean, you are comparing kind of two very different positions and two different team like identities. And so it's really hard for me. I think without Jarrett Culver, you don't go as far as you do. I don't think you make it that far in the tournament. I think that he was definitely a game changer, same way JT Toppin was. So each of them, for me, both great players. Like both of them, I would not want to lose either one of them on the teams that they were on for sure. JT Toppin, though, overall, just a much better player, much higher ceiling, especially in the NBA.
Higher ceiling in the NBA.
Yes.
I mean, Toppin didn't really do anything in the NBA, but I would say as prospects. I will. So
I have a quick question. Was Jarice Jackson an All-American here?
Good question.
I don't remember if he was. I know those.
I think the only All-Americans we had were Petit, Andre Emmett. I do believe Keenan Evans actually was an All-American, and then Jarrett Culver, and now Toppin.
Jarius Jackson was not an All-American.
Okay.
Two-time All Big 12, but not an All-American. And you are right about Keenan Evans. Keenan Evans was an All-American as well, so that's my bad. That's my B. But and Keenan Evans, talk about the great international career. Keenan Evans is killing it overseas. Absolutely. He's on Olympiacos now, and that is, for those that don't know about overseas team, that's one of the best teams you can be on. It's like the Greek team that's typically wrecking shop and trying to win like the Euro Cup. So for him to make it to Olympiacos right now, before he turns 30, that is because he balls, right? So he's having an absolutely great year. It's actually what I think Mac McClung should do. I think Mac McClung should give up on the G League dream, to be honest. It's just not. It's not going. Hey, buddy, you try. Good job, good effort. You got a G League MVP out of it. Stop trying to fight for $500,000 in the NBA. Go make real money for Real Madrid. Because I think he'd be great. So you mentioned about them playing different positions. I'll give you another guy. So Tony Petit, there's been a big trend about like, hey, Dad, what was the 90s like? I'm gonna take you back to Tony Petit in the 90s, and Tony Petit does play very similarly to how Culver plays. All right, so Tony Petit at the time was averaging, his senior year, averaged 19 points, 12 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, like that. For when it comes to single season. Now, Tony Petit's freshman and sophomore years weren't as great, but then he really took off his junior year. When it comes to singular seasons, I think that's, and style of play, that is one where you can look at and say, oh, well, style of play wise, that's the same. And I'm sure I'm going to get somebody in responding back that's like, you young whippersnappers don't know about Tony Petit. In 97, he was unstoppable. And he was unstoppable. But that's, I think, one piece where, there's an argument. Toppin, not as many blocks, not as many rebounds, but more steals. And also, I think they have the same amount of stocks For those that don't know, stocks or steals and blocks combined. The youth have now combined the two stats into one. But I would say more of an offensive presence, but Petit defensively was really, really great. And a true post presence overall. So I think that those two you can really compare and look at and see who fits the bill. And I see the wheels turning for Joe. So I feel like that's
I mean, Jason Sasser had a similar season that his sophomore year. He averaged 20 and 9.
Yeah.
It's 93, 94. And I mean, I think he was 6'8" or 6'9", kind of like a top end kind of a player there. So, I mean, between those three, I mean, those are all three dogs to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
for sure. And Sasser did it for
power forward.
To your point, Sasser did it for a while too. Like I talked about Tony Petit really blowing up in his last year here at Tech. Sasser was like, "Hey, I've arrived, and I'm just going to stay here and chill here for a little bit and dominate in the Southwest Conference." Right? Sasser kind of felt like he was, and I would argue that Sasser's rise also really led to, that great 97 season as well. Like that was, unfortunately, Sasser left the year before, but that really culminated to the team that they had that really went to the Sweet 16, was the greatest team ever prior to the 2017 team. So anyways, as we kind of don't reflect too much on the past and go into the future, all right. So y'all talked about it. Texas Tech has a 6 seed. The Big 12 had 8 selections overall in the NCAA tournament. I don't think too many people had a problem with the Big 12 getting 8. I think there were 2 issues that people took up. One, Yormack, every other commissioner is lying to get more people in. Stop trying to be somewhat realistic of what we're actually going to get. We need you to lie to and really push teams that have no business in the tournament getting in, like the SEC does. Because the SEC has no business getting 11 teams in. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculously stupid. This last year, I couldn't push on the SEC too much because they had I would argue last year was the best year SEC has ever had in men's basketball. This year, they fell back to what they usually are, which is a middling conference. They're amongst the bigs. Big 12, in my opinion, once again, was the best conference in the country. And then the ACC was second. And then the Big 10 and SEC were fighting it out for third. And I think some people would argue Big 10, with especially having Michigan, was third. So, 11 bids is just utterly ridiculous. But back to what I was saying. Big 12, 8 bids. TCU getting a 9 seed. UCF getting a 10 seed. We talked about them earlier this year. BYU getting a 6 seed. Of course, Texas Tech with our 5 seed. Kansas with a 4 seed. Iowa State and Houston both getting 2 seeds. And then Arizona, who's looked like arguably the best team in the country all year, they get a 1 seed. So, Jeremy, Texas Tech, 5 seed against Akron down in Tampa, 11:40 a.m. a tip. We are in the dreaded 5-12 matchup. Not only are we in the dreaded 5-12 matchup that has about a 50-50 split between the two, we are a very, very, very popular upset pick. To the point where I don't even know if we're favorites anymore. A lot of people are predicting us to lose this game. Is it wild or does it make sense?
I think from a betting perspective, it makes a lot of sense. And, every time that the brackets, the bracketology unleashes and like we have our, go pick who you want, go pick. People look immediately for how have teams been playing, key injuries, when you're looking at that, Texas Tech is awful. We are limping into this thing back to back losses, right? And we don't have our best player on the team, and we've got our second best player on the team went down in the tournament, and they're like, yeah, he's definitely playing. Don't worry. But if you're looking at it from kind of like a 30,000 point view or 30,000 foot view, you're thinking, okay, well, how good is he though? And I think when you're looking at this from kind of an objective, this is the favorite upset pick. Like it's like Akron is 7th in NCAA scoring, right? 5th in offensive efficiency. This is a good team. Like in terms of scoring, like they like to score and they also like to play, pretty decent defense. So a team like that, given second chances, especially under the basket, and they've got dudes that can go rebound. Like there's a reason that they did so well in the MAC, and it's because their rebounding is phenomenal. Like, they do a great job between what's that guy's name? I can't pronounce it. I don't think I can pronounce it. I don't want to get it wrong. But Mahaffey.
Oh.
The Mahaffey brothers, if you will. There's two of them. But also Amani Lyles. Like, they create second chance points. And the thing that's really killed Texas Tech in the past couple of games, opponents getting second chance points. And it's like, we're not having enough urgency under the basket to limit that. That in itself can cause this game to go the wrong way. So I'm not surprised. I think the line is still 1.5 Texas Tech. I think it will stay there because it's Texas Tech, right? But don't be shocked if this is a close game, 4 minutes left to go, and McCaslin's out there being like, listen, if you guys want to win, you have to start like this. You got to turn it on now. Akron is looking for an opportunity. And when we talked last, I think the expectation was, we're talking about, Joe, like High Point or somebody else. And it was like, teams like that want to beat the big brand teams because it's like, that's what we do. We come into March and we get the upset if we can, and we ride that high all the way back. For a team like Akron's played some pretty good teams this year, and they haven't always come out on top. So this is a team that I think feels a little bit unjustified. And we got the 12 seed, but I'm not afraid of a number. I'm not afraid of the 5 seed. I'm not afraid of Texas Tech. And man, they're going to come in with some swagger for sure.
So the line is 8.5, but I will say that is the shortest line of any 12-5 matchup. The ESPN BPI predictor actually gives Akron a pretty low upset chance in this one, only 18%, which is the second lowest of the 12-5 matchups. But to your point, Jeremy, bettors love Akron. They have pushed that line down quite a bit. So, I mean, Joe, and I think I would agree with Jeremy that it's fair. It's fair to look at Texas Tech and look at a team that's without their best player, a team that's lost 3 straight games, and say, yep, there's our 12-5 upset. Let's call it. Let's book it here. But what are things that people that are booking on Akron to upset us not thinking about?
I mean, both of these teams are heavily reliant. Both offenses are heavily reliant on the 3. Like Akron, I mean, listen to these numbers of attempts of most of their majority of their players who play. Johnson has 3-point attempts. He has 201 3-point attempts. Lyles has 120. Scott has 192. Hardman has 190. Young has 130. Like, this is going to be a game of rebounding because I think both teams are going to put up. It's going to be a 3-point contest. To be completely honest, it's just on paper this doesn't seem like a game that's going to be technically won in the paint as far as scoring goes, but as far as whoever utilizes and takes care of rebounds and turnovers is going to ultimately win this game. Because if both of these teams are hot, it's going to be, a track meet who gets to 80 first wins. If none of them are dropping for either team, then it's going to be who gets to 60 first. It's just there's the styles between both of these teams is pretty neck and neck with each other and what they do offensively as far as 3-point shooting goes. And I think, you have the one game that they've played a similar opponent because they played Purdue as well, and they didn't get curb stomped like we did in was it the Bahamas this year? They lost by like a 17 points, and Tech lost by 30. So that's the only similar opponent. But like I said, they put up a whole lot of 3-pointers, just as we have done since JT went down. So a lot of it's going to be keen on all of the other aspects, not turning the ball over and then rebounding the ball.
I do think one thing that really plays into our favor when you talk about rebounding, they do average more rebounds than Tech does, which the rebounding stat to me is always something that it means something individually. It doesn't really mean something as a team because especially when you're comparing different conferences, that's more about style of play, pace, that doesn't really, when you're comparing teams in number of rebounds, it doesn't mean too much unless it's like a wide variance, right? And it's not a wide variance. It is an effort stat, but at the same time, like bad rebounding teams can still average a lot of rebounds. You know what I mean? If you shoot the ball 100 times, you get the rebound 40 times a game. That means you missed out on the rebound 60 times, but it's going to show you at a high with a high rebounding average, right? But I think one thing that really to see this, so when you see the comparison, you say, oh, well, Akron rebounds more than Tech. However, they don't really have a lot of good rebounders. And a big reason for that, and what helps Tech in this aspect, they're a small team, right? They're only quote unquote big that they have starting out is Monty Lyles, who's 6'9". Now he's a big boy. He's strong. He's a bit swole, but Bam Boye is going to have the height advantage, the rebounding advantage. He averages 8 rebounds a game. It's nothing crazy, right? And he's really their main rebounder. Outside of that, they're relying on wings to get rebounds. They're relying on one of the Mahaffey brothers, like you were mentioning, Evan Mahaffey, who averages less than 6 rebounds a game. But he's a 6'6" wing, right? That is that hustle stat we were talking about. It is coming off of all of the 3-point shots that they're jacking up throughout the game. So it does, I think to that point, you're not going to have a scenario, especially defensively, where you're like, oh man, we're really going to miss JT Toppin. Not against Akron. Not against Akron defensively, because you're actually going to, in my opinion, have a leg up on them in that aspect. Where it is a bit of a more comparison is that fact of both teams going to jack up shots, and both teams has that star guard, right? We have Christian McCaffrey. They have Davari Johnson. Davari Johnson also averages 20 points a game, has 5 assists per game. He's a mighty mouse of a player, but dude is quick, right? Dude is quick, and he's also somebody that's going to not only get to the cup, but he's going to shoot some shots. As for his career, averages over 37% from 3. So he's going to shoot some shots up. It's going to be very interesting to see that matchup with him and Christian Anderson just overall. And I'd be also interested to see, do they guard each other? Because that'd be a lot of fun, just in general. If I'm Davari Jackson, right? We talk about it all the time in college football about, players want to prove themselves against bigger teams for NFL draft purposes. In the NBA, coming from a smaller college, you're not as likely to get drafted. However, you want to put something on tape? This is the game to do it, Davari. Guard Christian Anderson. All right, Davari, listen to me. This is your friendly neighborhood Albert here. Guard Christian Anderson for the whole game. Show them what you're made of. You may think that this is me just trying to bribe you into guarding our best offensive player so you can tire yourself out offensively. Don't listen to that evil head. Just do what I say. Guard Christian Anderson the whole game. Show them.
I bet Petty's on Johnson.
Listen, I'm not giving Christian Anderson that same advice.
Yeah.
Just for Davari Johnson. But yeah, I do agree with that. That Petty would be on him. But it's going to be an interesting matchup overall, right? That our teams really do, to your point, Joe, really mirror each other in that way. If the Red Raiders can get past the Akron Zips, the rest of the way for Texas Tech, you may say, man, it must be really easy past Akron. It's not. It is not. Now, I will say this. So if we get past Akron, it's going to be the winner of Alabama and Hofstra. And actually, funny enough, Alabama is also a very popular 4-13 upset. I actually saw, I don't know if it was Jay Billis or it was some pundit predicted both Akron to beat Tech and Hofstra to beat Alabama. So both Tech and Alabama will be out in Tampa, both on upset alert. If we can get past both of them, then it is likely playing Michigan, who I talked before about Arizona potentially looking like the best team in the country. Michigan's also looked somewhat like the best team in the country all year as well. So that's going to be a tough one in itself. And if we get past Michigan, then it's another matchup and another rematch, likely against either Iowa State or the most expensive team in the country in Kentucky, or technically second most expensive because Indiana is the most expensive and they stunk this year, or a rematch against Virginia, who we've hated ever since 19. So what do you guys make of their side of the bracket? I mean, is that my take is it's not insurmountable. My take is if we had a fully healthy team, I'd actually feel really good about the bracket. But my take is with the team we have now, Joe?
I mean, if Texas Tech could beat Iowa State on the road without JT Toppin, I mean, I think if with all the right pieces falling in place, you could play with anybody in college basketball. But however, we've seen the bad end of that over the last couple of games with Texas Tech, and when those cards fall in the wrong places, how bad it could get, and how it just kind of looks like the odds are stacked against you from the start. So, I mean, it's like you said in one of our group chats. It's like this team could lose in the first round, or they can make it to the Elite Eight. It's like I mean, it just depends on the draw itself. You beat Akron, then you get a Alabama team like me and Jeremy were talking about with Aiden Holloway kind of player, their second best scorer. Then you get into the Michigan matchup potentially after that. I mean, like I said, it just if the chips fall your way, then it's doable to the Elite Eight. But it's a one game at a time at this point in time. I don't mean to rhyme, but yeah, something like that.
Jeremy, what are your thoughts about this bracket?
I love it if we were healthy, and it's been a long time since we've been healthy, like in the tournament, which is disappointing. I think one game at a time is the best way you got to look at this for the men, especially because, like, if you look ahead, you're thinking, man, Alabama doesn't have Aiden Holloway. We could definitely beat Alabama, and you get zipped by Akron. There you go. The fighting LeBron Jameses. Then what? Then it's like, well, we would have gotten Alabama if we beat Akron. So it's every game has to be your best game. Like, you can't have a bad game against Akron. Okay, you can't have a bad game against Alabama. You might get, if Hofstra beats Alabama, you can have a bad game against Hofstra, but you can't have a bad game against Alabama, right? And then after that, like every possession after that has got to be the best possession of basketball you've ever played, because Michigan or Georgia or St. Louis or Howard, you never know. But that they're going to be playing their best basketball, right? And so we are at the point where we can't. Joe said it earlier, like, this team's still figuring some stuff out. We cannot be there anymore. Like, after this first, we cannot be there. Like, you have to. It's got to be. Everybody has to agree on what their job is and stick to it for this to have any chance to work. So, like, I like where we are in the bracket. Like, I like the teams that are kind of, we could get matched up against. I do not like that our team is still, we're either red hot or we're in like a 6-minute scoring drought. And it's like, what are we doing? Why are we letting other teams get back in there? Why bother, right? Why bother allowing teams to feel like they can play with us? And it's disappointing because this is a team that has all the makings of a national championship team, but between injury, between like these identity issues late in the season, it's going to come up short, and I hope it comes up short in the Elite Eight. But if we lose against Akron, I'm not going to sit here and go, we should have freaking beat Akron, because like if we should have beat Akron, we would have beaten them, right? So I don't know, man. This is a tricky tournament time.
So, guys, I'm going to ask you, Texas Tech versus Akron, time for predictions. Who you got in the game, and how far do you think Tech goes in the tournament?
I have Texas Tech going to the Sweet 16 and ending it. It's ending there as far as where they go. If I have them going to the Sweet 16, I have them beating Akron. It's going to be relatively close, pulled away late by some free throws. Tech by 12.
Tech by 12. I like it. Jeremy, what you got?
Similar for me. I do think the game against Akron's gonna be a lot closer. I think that this, and I mentioned earlier, I have like a vision of this game being 4 minutes left, and we're either tied or we're down by like 3, and Kazan calls a timeout, and you just see him tearing into the guys, because it's like, hey, we didn't go through the Big 12 all year to come play Akron like this, right? Now, I think that gets you over Akron. I think you win by 2, maybe. Off course. Awesome. And then I think that, Alabama does get past Hofstra even without Holloway, but I think that we're able to handle – I think we match up against Alabama pretty well. And after that first game, you've got dipped in. But I think we're out in the Sweet 16. I don't care who we're matched up against. We don't have the rebounding for it, and I've not seen very many teams make it deep in the tournament without rebounding. So, yeah, take me out.
Yeah, we're keeping that banner. Jeremy. Joe says we're going to the Sweet 16, so I'm gonna say we're going to the Sweet 16. Of course. You know what I'm gonna say? We're going to the Sweet 16. I have the same one. I will say this. Honestly, if I wasn't a Tech fan, I'd probably pick Akron to upset us. I really would. It makes all the sense in the world that Akron would make this jump. Tech's right now, we're falling. Every one bid team in this conference in this tournament, or not every, but high majority of the one bid teams in this tournament had to win 3 straight to get here. Akron's no exception. And so they're somewhat on a run. I think they have to look at Tech. A lot of the times when in these tournaments, the lower seeded team has to have a level of belief and a level of thought that, maybe we can we actually do this? And it takes a little bit of time before they have that belief. Akron's going to come into the game with belief already. They're already going to look at Tech losing 3 straight, no JT Toppin, and say, oh, we can beat this team off top. If I'm Akron, right, if I'm an Akron fan, if I'm an Akron player, I'm looking at this, like licking my chops and saying, this is exactly the 5 seed we want. I just think that Tech is a lot better than Akron, and a lot of, even without JT Toppin, teams think. I think that, obviously Iowa State, it's obvious we didn't really come to play or really want to play. Last 2 games, things didn't go our way. I do think the Cows are going to get these boys ready. I don't see us flopping for game 1, because I also think we're going to be ready for them. It's not going to be an upset on our side either, right? We're going to be absolutely ready for this Akron team. And also, I don't have it in me to pick Tech to lose round 1 when we're the higher seeded team. Can't do it. Sorry, guys. I can't do it. So with that, I actually feel more confident about round 2 than I do about round 1, actually. I think whether it's Alabama or Hofstra, I'm actually more worried about Akron than either of those other 2 teams. So I do think we get to the Sweet 16. And then it's, hey, we had a good run. Then it's, hey guys, it's been fun. Hey, Michigan, how are y'all doing? And then, we bow out gracefully. But yeah, that's where I have it. Jeremy, who do you have winning the whole thing?
Arizona, of course. I think the Big 12 is best conference in America. That's right. If you look at my Final Four, it's all 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. No, I'm just joking. I haven't filled out a bracket yet. But Arizona, ever since they got spanked by the Red Raiders, have been on a mission from God. So, man, I think Arizona's looking at this year as like, this is our year to make it happen. And they have a pretty good side of the bracket too.
I think God looks at Arizona like, oh.
This is who you sent me?
Yeah. He takes one step in Tucson and is like, you live like this? But Arizona has not lost since that Tech game. They've been on a heater themselves. Joe, who do you got winning it all?
I haven't filled out a bracket either, to be completely honest, and I don't know where I'm at right now. Duke looks equally as poised to be able to get a title with John Shire this year. I mean, I guess that would be like the pick from early on, like the preseason pick. I mean, but Michigan's been playing some good basketball. Give me Michigan out of our region, Midwest.
So here's what I'll say. Houston's going to the Final Four. They're going to the Final Four. They have the Sweet 16 Elite 8 in Houston. So they're going to the Final Four. And so with that, I've been wanting to pick them to win the whole thing. The problem I have is I know we don't like Houston basketball. I get it. I know that. It's really hard for me to dislike Kelvin Sampson. It's really hard for me to dislike Kingston Flemings. Both really, the rest of the team can go kick rocks. But those 2 guys, really hard to dislike. And so, I wanted for them. I especially wanted for Kelvin Sampson. However, it's really hard for me to get past. This is probably Kelvin Sampson's worst team in like 3-4 years. You know what I mean? So like, it'd be really ironic for him to win a natty with like his worst team in 4 years. And I do think Arizona legitimately is the best team in the country. I think Duke has a little bit more of a favoritism when it gets down to Indianapolis. Houston will be in the Final Four. Congrats to them. Great to them. I do kind of trust Kelvin Sampson a little bit more as a coach against Arizona, but I don't know if I trust him as a coach against both John Shire and against what's his name at Arizona. But man, I think Arizona is they're too talented. It's the and you know who it'll be all because Bryce James, baby. Yes, if you didn't know, Bryce James is on the team. That's LeBron's son. He is on the team. You wouldn't know it by like literally anything that's happened with Arizona this year, but he is on the team. It's the Bryce James effect. And so Arizona is looking like my pick. So all that being said, let's switch to the other side of things, guys. Let's talk to the ladies. Lady Raiders, best season they've had in 15 years. Best start they've had ever. Right, Krista Gerlich is not only saved her job, and then some. Krista Gerlich also won Coach of the Year. And I honestly think there wasn't a close second. What's her name from Arizona State had a really good run, so I think she was probably the only other person that was even mentioned for potential Coach of the Year. But Krista Gerlich easily won Coach of the Year in the Big 12. Snuda Collins won Sixth Player of the Year. I think she also, I would say, probably won it easily without a close second. Snuda Collins also got All Big 12 team, second team. Bailey Maupin getting All Big 12 first team. We talked a little bit about a pre-pod. Bailey Maupin also really etching her name as one of the greatest Lady Raiders ever. I know it's really weird to say because, of the 4 years she was here, it was one of the last one where the Lady Raiders had any respectability. But she is top 5 in a bunch of all-time stats. Minutes played, games played, points, all that jazz. She's high up there. So Bailey Maupin really etching her name. Like to the point where I'm not advocating for this. It would not shock me if there was a Ring of Honor jersey retirement later on in her future. Again, I'm not advocating for it. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it really would not shock me just because of where she winds up in the all-time career record list. And then she stamped it with an all Big 12 first team to end her career. And in a year that could be viewed as the Lady Raider Renaissance, right? So with all that being said, the Lady Raiders, so Texas Tech Lady Raiders had a very fun year. It's a year that ended not so gracefully. Did I say that good enough for you there, Joe? Not so gracefully. Wasn't the best end of the year. We talked a few weeks ago. I mentioned how the Lady Raiders didn't have any. I think I had said at the time that there was only maybe one loss they had all year that wasn't expected, right? That I looked at and said, you know what, they had no business losing that game. Safe to say they've added on to that. They've added on a couple more games where I'm like, ooh, how did you lose that one? With that being said, though, they never with that loss to K-State to end the season hurt. They're also a team that lost 3 of their last 4 and 4 of their last 6. So also really limping into the tournament itself. I don't know. Joe, what do you make of this season, especially this end of the season overall?
I mean, the end of the season is something you kind of want to forget based on how the team played all the way up until those last 6 games. There's some games in there that you wish you had back. Both of the Kansas State games, you had leads. You had leads. The game you lost here in Lubbock, and then obviously the huge lead you had after that first quarter in the Big 12 tournament. And it's inconsistency. And I mean me and Jeremy had talked about this in our previous pod. It's just, you see the transition from last year to this year. You get the right coaching staff in there, you get the right players in there, you get the right buy-in. And you see the program take a huge step forward from years past, culminating in this whole Big 12, the NCAA tournament bid, for the first time in, 13 years, 14 years, something like that. This is the writings on the wall. Essentially, they have the right pieces there. Moving forward, they're probably going to be pretty heavy in the transfer portal this upcoming year, which we could talk about some of these players that are ultimately going to be putting their names out there here sooner than later. But as far as the coaching staff, and you have the right staff in place along with Coach Gerlich and, the buy-in, from some of these upperclassmen, your Bailey Maupins, and things like that. Danae Fritz, she's been around the block for a while as well. These are the type of people that you want to have leading a bunch of youngsters. And that's, to how to do this in the Big 12. And I think it's ultimately going to, I wouldn't say it's the renaissance, but I mean, I feel better about next season as I did, or I feel better about this upcoming season after this season is done as I did last year coming into this year. It's one of those things. It's like, everybody was, screaming it like, oh, why'd we give Gerlich another year? Why'd we do this? Why'd we do that? And, I guess the people who doubted her, all those naysayers, and I could say I was one of them. I mean, honestly, that I didn't think that it was in the best interest for Texas Tech to bring her back. But, she was back and, coach of the year, Big 12 coach of the year. And it showed. So I think maybe another contract is in the works. Maybe we have some more players and more money allocated to the women's basketball team because, look what TCU did. They allocated money to the women's basketball program.
Threw money at the women's basketball.
Yeah, and turned their program around. Who says that we couldn't do the same? The Monterey product will be here as a Red Raider. She's a really good basketball player. Played with Leah Chavez. Obviously, her name doesn't get mentioned quite as much because she did play with her or whatnot. But, the trend is good where this basketball team is going. I do see them potentially – I don't see them. I see them getting past Villanova, but, it coming to an end at the round of 32 with that tough draw against LSU and the Fighting Mulkeys.
I really hope people that are watching this on YouTube saw the Let a Naysayer Know banner and understood that reference because that's awesome. So yeah, no, all great points. Jeremy, what are your thoughts as this team kind of limped their way at the end of the season?
An excellent season, much different perspectives than the men's basketball team, just because I did expect that, hey, we're probably going to see head coaching change or some serious changes, coming into this season, and to have Coach Gerlich kind of on a tight leash and for her to respond so positively with that. And there were some goofy losses that have already been mentioned, but there are some really important and powerful wins that to set this team up for success going forward. And, we've got a lot of pieces here. We've got pieces coming in, and we've with this appearance in the NCAA tournament, first time in 13 years, that has got to generate some excitement going forward. That has got to generate some, momentum going forward. And so whether we bow out with Villanova or, LSU, or we actually do go a little bit further and shock everybody, including ourselves, most of all, getting back was step one, right? Step two is now returning with a little bit more energy, returning with more purpose, right? Can we return? And we were talking about in the last pod, this Texas Tech team was not far off from challenging for a Big 12 title, right? There were some the games that they should have won that they fell short on, coaching or otherwise, that you win those games and you're having a whole different conversation. So I'm very impressed with this season for the Lady Raiders. I think that there was some kind of disappointment, if you're setting your sights that high already of like, this team should have won the Big 12. They should have won the Big 12 after having an abysmal year last year. That doesn't make sense. But like, man, I'm stoked for this team. I'm really excited they're back in the tournament. I'm excited to match up against Villanova. I think that it's actually pretty equally matched, at least on paper, right? I don't watch Villanova, but this could be a really good, what'd you call it? The Renaissance. This is like the start of the Renaissance for the Lady Raiders. Like, that could be a thing, and that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think I will say this. One thing that the boosters from Tech have shown, all they need is a glimmer of hope. they're not going to spend frivolously. Like, we're not throwing money at the baseball team right now. That doesn't look like they're doing anything. But you give us an inch. You go out. I remember before the softball free spending the year before, we were looking like a team that was willing to compete. And then, of course, our coach left us for dead. And so, you know what? F him. F this. We're going to spend $1 million on a pitcher. Right? Football. 3 straight years of winning seasons. They were like, hey, we already dipped our toe in NIL, but let's go full force. All you need is a little men's basketball. They were doing this since beard. All you need is to give them a little inkling of, hey guys, we kind of good. And they're like, you know what? You sure are. Here's $5 million. Go crazy. So yeah, I do think that this is that glimmer of hope a little bit. To your point, Joe, about Ambrosia Cole. And luckily for her, she's a year younger, so she had that this year to ball. And Ambrosia Cole actually at one point this year, I think, led the nation in scoring. Like, imagine you're in district, I think it's District 2, 6A, was it last year, or the district of all the Lubbock High schools, Monterey, Lubbock High, all those schools. So imagine you're at Lubbock High, right? You're like, oh, thank God, we don't have to play Aaliyah Chavez this year. We'll kill it. We'll kill it. And then Ambrosia Cole, you see Ambrosia Cole, like, man, I thought she left too. What you mean she here? This is terrible. So at least we were able to keep this one home. Ambrosia Cole was. And also, I think a lot of the times when you hear a Lubbock person coming to Tech, you think it's like one of those like here you go scholarships, kind of like Ethan Duncan's was.
Like a Make-A-Wish scholarship?
Yeah, kind of. Like, and Ethan Duncan actually just entered the transfer portal today. He was at Lipscomb last year. Actually, he's had a really good, resurgence in his career. He's still not like Texas Tech ready, right? But a lot of times when you look at the people from Lubbock, you're like, maybe a Make-A-Wish scholarship. Nah, Ambrosia Cole would have got this scholarship if she came from Alaska. All right, she is cold. So, anyways, so let's talk a little bit about what.
And she gets Stephanie too.
Oh yeah, that's true. Good point. Got a 7'1" player, right? That's going to be considered a freshman next year. So please don't look at African birth certificates. She's a freshman. Yeah. She's a freshman. So talking about their season, so Texas Tech did get the 7 seed. They will be playing Villanova in the first round. Jeremy has done extensive work on the Villanova Wildcats, as he just mentioned. He is the number one watcher of the Wildcat women's basketball team. So if we do beat Villanova, we do play, we do get the privilege of playing LSU in the second round, right, with a familiar foe. And so guys, do we lose in the first round or second? That is the question. Jeremy, what are your thoughts?
I said second. Yeah, I think that you match up well against Villanova, and I think that with the excitement that you have bringing into this matchup, I think you're able to get past Villanova. We're 34th in the nation for scoring defense, and Villanova's like 112th. So. And that's a pretty small margin. I mean, it's a huge gap, it feels like, but it's a pretty small margin points-wise. But I think that Villanova has shown less kind of gumption down the stretch in a lot of games this season versus Texas Tech. Now, important note, the only reason Villanova didn't win their conference is because UConn is in their conference. And they played UConn 3 times. They lost to UConn 3 times. So, that is what it is. But I think that, this game will really come down to turnovers. And we commit probably 15 turnovers a game, I think is the number. Villanova commits, converts, what was it? Sorry. Yes, it's going to come out of turnovers. I had the numbers in my head. Anyways, the Lady Raiders have taken care of the ball pretty well this season. Villanova, however, does like to convert, but that's what it is. It was Villanova has converted on average, I think 20 points a game off of turnovers. So if the Lady Raiders are able to, play a much more solid ball that they can play, like we've seen them limited turnovers in games, that puts all that's that. Then it's our game to lose, right? But if we're going out there, we're trying to force the issue, we're making bad passes, we're not keeping our eye on the ball when we're handling it. then that gets into Villanova's range. But I think that there's going to be a lot more focus for this Lady Raider team, especially how we ended, in the tournament and stuff like that. And so I think that, clean game. I think the Lady Raiders come out on top. It's probably going to be a higher scoring game. Both teams are used to scoring a lot. So for me, I think you get out of this game 68-64, Texas Tech. And then you have you're glad that you're in the second weekend and you come home before the next, you come home gracefully.
So, to beat Villanova, I actually think it's a pretty simple thing. If Jasmine Basco has a bad shooting day, they're not winning. It's pretty simple. She averages 19 points a game, but in her losses, let me give you the numbers for her losses. Last game against UConn, she shot 5-19. Right, loss before that, she shot 8 for 22. Loss before that against St. John's, she shot 3 for 16. Loss before that against UConn again, she shot 3 for 13. If she is not shooting well, they cannot win. Literally every other game, I think there's only one other game this year where she shot less than 30% against Georgetown and they were able to win. And that's just because Georgetown is awful. But if she is having a bad game, they can't win. They just can't win. She is, and defensively, we've done a really good job of making life hell for some of the better players in this league. So that to me is one recipe that we can to get past Villanova and have a shot against LSU.
Yeah, you have to control the pace here because Villanova is going to want to push the tempo on that, spread you out, get threes up. Your half-court defense has to be strong for the Lady Raiders. Your defensive presence and your rebounding has to be solid as well. But to your point, Briscoe doesn't start making baskets in this. You have a 8-cylinder car moving on 4 cylinders if she's not making shots. So that falls into Tech's hands. And then if she's not making shots, then now you can start controlling the pace and the tempo, start being a little bit more methodical on your offensive sets, and hopefully be more physical down low, get some baskets underneath.
Texas Tech is a 1.5 favorites over the Wildcats. ESPN gives them a 52% chance of winning. So ESPN thinks it's going to be a close game. But I honestly think it's just a battle of a star player in Basco versus a team of players in Maupin and Collins and Bristow and Fritz and Nunez. Just a bunch of players that we can really throw at you that should make Villanova's life a little bit more difficult before our lives get a lot more difficult against LSU. So, we've been talking about LSU quite a bit. I think it's safe to say that actually, I'm not going to speak for y'all. I'll speak for myself and say I do not see a scenario where we beat the LSU Tigers. For those that don't know, if those that are unfamiliar with the women's tournament, the highest seed is the one that hosts the first round, the first weekend. So we will be in Baton Rouge. So luckily, it's not going to be too far for Lady Raider fans that want to go out there, right? At least give us home court advantage for the first game. There's no way we get home court advantage for the second game. It'll be against LSU. So there's one. So it's going to be a road game against LSU. 2, we are playing the LSU Tiger team that has just been dominant for the last X amount of years, right? Including national championship. And not just that. The team itself is good. And it's not fair that they went off and got one of probably the biggest dynasty we've seen in the last few years of South Carolina. And they went and said, hey, South Carolina, one of your best players that you keep on the bench the last couple of years, yeah, we're going to have her transfer to us and Malaysia Fulwiley. And Fulwiley has just led their team in scoring 15 points a game. And then remember that rapper Flo J. Johnson that you think can just rap? No, she also can get buckets. She's putting up 14 points a game. Oh, and then also Michaela Williams, right? The one that was the highly vaulted star local guard out of Bossier City. She's also putting up 14 points a game. This team is just a team full of players with overtime mixtapes in high school that all committed to the same school, right? This is a team that they are not satisfied unless they make the Final Four. And if you are new to women's college basketball, there's not a lot of upsets outside of you'll see them in the 8-9s, you'll see them in the 7-10s, you'll see them a little bit in the 6-11s, and it kind of stops there. There's just not that many upsets. And so a team like a number 2 seed, if you don't get to the Elite Eight, it's a failure. And I think if you're LSU, especially in a bracket where your number 1 seed is UCLA, and UCLA will be playing in Sacramento. This is the Sacramento region, so that's a little bit beneficial for them. But LSU has to look at this bracket like, the hell is a Red Raider or hell is a Lady Raider? We got to get to the Final Four. So, yeah, I think all three of us said a Tech win in the first round and a Tech loss in the second. So let me tell you guys, I don't see it.
I said something else, but we'll leave that off the air.
That'd be the upset of the tournament if
easily. And we're trying. Listen, we're not here to put flowers up here. We're gonna tell you the truth, and it ain't. I just don't see it happening. Now, if it does happen, it's great. We still support the team. We're just realists, right?
For sure.
They still deserve applause when they come back to Lubbock. And I do think this is a great starting point as we move forward. And for the players that will be here going forward, it's going to be a good test. Good test to see what real championship level team looks like. Just please don't embarrass us. That's all I ask. LSU is a 51.5 point favorite against Jacksonville.
Damn.
God.
They're like video game numbers, man. I'm like,
oh golly, man, that's insane.
How do you say thanks for coming without saying thanks for coming?
Yeah, seriously. Like, hey guys, good job. Hope you have fun in Baton Rouge. That's what that is.
Nice eateries on Bourbon Street. Should hit them up.
You should hit them up. Hey, I'm just here. New Orleans is down the street. It's not too far. Have fun now. You hear? Yeah. So, all right, Joe. Anything else you want to say to the people?
No, big weekend in Texas Tech on the men's and women's basketball side, and we're hoping for all good things for both programs. But we'll be here to talk about it, good, bad, or the other. So, let's get ready.
Both first round games will be on Friday. So that's going to be a lot of fun. The men will play in early in the morning or early afternoon, I should say. The women will be playing at night at 8:30. So we'll get a chance to watch both of them. And again, if they both move on, we'll see both of them on Sunday. So again, same iteration. It should be the men playing a little earlier in the day and the women playing later in the evening. Jeremy, anything else you want to say to the people?
Here to enjoy it for what it is. March Madness. Yep. March
Madness indeed. So we'll be here for all that coverage to talk about the weekend here next week. So focus up. So for the People's Champ, aka Papa Germ, that is Jeremy Gillen, and for the Red Raider expert, aka TTU Presidente, that is Joe Lopez. You are talking to your boy Albie Shore, and this is the Tortillas and Takes podcast, part of the 1012 network. Still, as always, stay wrecked, people.